Hey, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to dive into game 3 of the Draven versus Diana. Both of them actually have clinched one game each, and we're going to move into the final game, and you'll be on the Forbidden Ways as well as the Target's Peak. Now Diana will get the first turn this turn and thus go for the stack deck immediately. Go and look at top 3, right? And he does have only 2 runes for the first turn, so using a stack deck immediately also means that he doesn't have a unit in hand. And it seems like he does pick up the Moonfall over the Titan, because I think Moonfall has been very effective against Draven so far. And of course, it's going to actually start recording down what you actually have put into the bottom deck, which is actually a very nice knowledge check. And we do see a second stack deck immediately, right? And we do see Vex and Fizz and even Starcross being put to the bottom. Does opt to take the Vex, of course. And Vex could be a very nice card against Draven, given that Draven does play cards like Kaisa, which does have Accelerate to go into the battlefield. We're going to see a stack deck from the opponent Draven itself as well. So very nice. Stack deck is just a very effective card, right? One cost, look at top 3 of the card. You don't have to show the opponent, just put one into your hand, man. So the idea of hiding the cards is actually also very important, because you can be digging for reaction speed cards, you can dig for combat tricks, you can even dig for a very strong unit. In this case, Vex for the Diana player, right? So we're going to be thinking quite hard for the Draven player here. Looking at his hand, I see a Rebuke, a Kaisa. No, that's just the top 3. I think he opted to take the Rebuke to hand, because Rebuke is actually pretty strong against Hui. Alright, and we do actually accidentally reveal the Kaisa, but we're just going to be playing down the Pauti Poro. Alright, just going to be a simple deflect unit, which can be quite annoying for Diana, because if he does intend to gas the unit, he can need to pay additional resources. And of course, we do see the Vex coming down. I'm just going to develop in base and just passing the turn. So in this case, you're not going to be afraid of cards like Star 4 or rather Falling Star in this case, because Falling Star on a Vex is going to cost you a lot of power, which is not what I think the Draven wants to do. So I think Draven just want to develop the bodies into the base, and I think he does have the Jin. This Jin is actually very strong, given that on move you can actually gain 1 energy as well as 1 rainbow, which allows you to use in the same turn, and does decide to move the Pauti Poro straight to the battlefield here. A very interesting play, because you are not respecting the fact that the Vex is already there. But it could also be he wants the Vex to come to the Forbidden Ways. And if you guys don't know what Forbidden Ways does, it's actually a pretty interesting card, right? It basically allows the defender, if he's defending alone, to have -2 might. So if the Vex do come in but on its own, it's going to be 2 might for the Jin to conquer later. But however, this is only on the fact that if it does defend alone. So we do know that purple have cards like Kha'Zix, alright, which is definitely a very strong card to actually just suddenly ambush. Essentially, it's the purple Rengar, and that could actually play around what the Draven intends to do or intends to bait out in terms of the Vex. So we shall see whether the Diana player intends to move up the Vex to actually just conquer for free over the Pauti Poro. He does have some hesitation here, but does intend to go for it, killing off the Pauti Poro, given that he's only 1 rune up, but I don't think there's any 1 rune that can stop this push, given that the Pauti Poro is also at 0 might as well. So you're going to see a development on the Ravenbloom student in base, which is a card that we do not see in the previous game as well. It's actually a very strong card for Diana, given that there's so much combat tricks that the Diana can play in a single turn. So cards like Stupefy essentially is like a +2 might for that combat. So it's pretty nice, right? So we're going to see whether we're going to see a further development, and I think we're just going to see a pass of turn. Wow. Alright, so there's actually like 4 standing runes, as well as a Diana legend ability, which is actually pretty sick, right? So the Jin is not going to have a fun time conquering or even fighting the Vex on its own. So the 4 runes could also be, like I mentioned, for the Kha'Zix, which is something that the Jin has to respect, right? So we currently do have 6 runes, or I believe 7 runes. Sorry, 6 only, because he developed a Jin in the previous turn. So I think he can afford to move into Target's Peak if he wants to. But just letting the Vex staying in the battlefield is also a huge problem in the late game, right? Because It's gonna stun your units. It's gonna turn off cards like Kaisa. It's gonna turn off cards like Darius. You're not going to just push them ready into the battlefield, which is what Draven really wants to do as well. So one way or another, he has to try to fight the Vex, but he has to respect their 4-rune standing, which is going to be the potential Kha'Zix, right? So the Kha'Zix ability, when it does attack or even defend alone, or rather when the enemy is alone, you do gain +2 might. So it's actually a 6 might unit, and we're going to see him just develop a Brino, right? Very interestingly, a Brino onto the base, and opponent can actually react to it, and he's just going to go for it straight away to react the Kha'Zix into the battlefield, letting him know there's no more surprises. Now the battlefield is actually 8 might. So the Jhin has to reconsider whether he wants to step in to actually kill off the Vex or even the Kha'Zix. Or rather, but if Kha'Zix, witness the opponent just coming in alone, is just going to go to 6 might, which is not really what Jhin wants to do. But however, you're going to basically trade off with the Vex, which could be an idea, right? But however, that also really depends on what the Draven wants to do in the long run. Because even if you do trade off like this, it's not going to be too fancy. So we do see him actually moving up to the Targon's Peak, right? And it's going to gain 1 power as well as 1 rainbow for the turn. Just go on to 2 points, very fortunately. And then he's just going to actually just end the turn, right? The Targon's Peak actually allows you to stand 2 runes, which could be a potential spinning X. We're going to hold to 2 points for the Diana player. And this is actually a pretty weak turn for the Draven, right? Because he does develop a Brino, and the Brino does force a reaction. In this case, does force the Kha'Zix out. Now he can actually just do something to the Jhin. Even though Jhin does have deflect, the Riven Bloom student is ready to attack. You're going to see him actually move the Vex to the base. Very interestingly, but I think it's also respecting the Brino in the base. And there's not much really urgent stun that you need, because opponent is only at 2 points. You do want to be very careful with the Vex when enemy is at 6 points or more, because there's a potential accelerate. But Kha'Zix can, Vex can stop such interactions from playing down. So we're going to see him consider quite a number of facts whether he wants to leave the Kha'Zix in the Forbidden Waste. But Kha'Zix does have a very interesting skill, right? Like I mentioned, it does gain 2 might if it's defending against one opponent. So it doesn't actually get minus in the Forbidden Waste. It's going to be still standing tall at 4 might. But of course, you do have the Brino in the base, so we're going to see how you're going to do it. But instead, we're going to see a tight turner being played, moving the Kha'Zix back to base. And this allows him to actually use the Kha'Zix to fight the Jhin. Of course, it does gain 2 might, right? Which is 6 might. And looks like we don't have any spinning X. And we're just going to see the Jhin just immediately just defeated. It could also be that the Diana player actually expected a spinning X and has Stupefy, cards like that in hand. So you can see him actually develop the Hui. And this game is start to look very, very bad for Draven, because we now have 5 units for Diana, and we only have 1 Brino in the base for the Draven player. So things is gonna get out of hand, and for Diana player to actually even get such a luxury of units, right? We do see Tide Turner, Riven Bloom Student, even Kha'Zix, as well as now the Vex, as well as the Hui. It's gonna look very spicy, because now the Draven player who wants to actually start pushing to the battlefield will have to start acknowledging that he's gonna lose battlefield as well, right? He's gonna lose the units onto the battlefield, given that the Riven Bloom Student does push up, the Hui does get pushed up, and as turns goes by, we're gonna see him start drawing into the Moonforce. We're gonna start seeing him drawing into the Starcross, and it's gonna get very, very difficult unless the Draven players start developing more unit at the base, and then of course seeing another day to push into the battlefield. But I think the Brinos does have to push into their tasty Tide Turner if he can. Alright, so you're gonna see him actually playing 5 runes here, and it's gonna develop a Kaisa immediately. Given the fact that the Vex is in base, so there's no stunning on the Kaisa, and Kaisa can be accelerated and going for the draw here. So the Kaisa could actually be moving for the Tide Turner to actually draw 1 for the Conquer, and then drawing an additional 1 more card for the Draven. So that could be something he's looking for, but instead he might be looking to push 2 units again. Very afraid of the Diana player here. So which is really interesting, right? For all 3 games, I do see him pushing with both units into the battlefield, giving usually not just a very weak might push. In this case, going for a 9 might push against a 0 might Tide Turner. So the Titan is going to be looking very sad, and looks like he's going to just let it go because there's no need to fight. We do gain up to 3 points here for the Draven, and does draw 2 thanks to legend ability as well as the Kai'Sa's Conquer effect. So now with 2 additional cards in hand, he could potentially be drawing into the Spinning Axe, which he does have a quick draw effect, essentially a reaction, giving +3 might to the unit. We do see in his hand he does have Gus. Gus could be pretty strong into the Realm Bloom student. But however, that's if he doesn't come in with already casting spells beforehand, right? So now this is it's looking pretty dicey now because we do have Hui in the back line, or rather in the base for the Diana player. He can simply just move it up the next turn, discarding a unit, going to 8 might, and then casting a Moon 4 to -4 might in total for that turn. And it's going to be pretty painful if you ask me. So I think there's definitely a lot of consideration as to what could be done here. With just 3 runes standing, he could just be developing. He just going to actually use 2 runes to develop further. Actually just paying for 2 runes. Alright, okay, he's going to go for the Falling Star here to kill the Hui. So that's pretty respectable, because you do want to make sure that the Hui doesn't actually fight into your battlefield so easily. And the Kha'Zix is stuck in another battlefield right now, so he can't actually push into the Kha'Zix unless he does have another Tide Turner. And looks like he does consider to play 1 hidden card here. He does actually pay 1 and just going to put 1 hidden into the battlefield, which is going to be quite annoying, right, for the Diana player. And Diana does hold to 4 thanks to that Kha'Zix in the Targon's Peak. So pretty nice, but like I mentioned, the Kha'Zix is not ready to attack the battlefield. He does have the Realm Bloom student though, so the Realm Bloom student can just walk in confidently into the battlefield. And then of course, casting Moon 4 to actually kill off or trade off one of the units. So sometimes in this game, it's better to just trade off. You have to show all hand first. You force a reaction from your opponent, and the opponent will have to do something, right? If they don't do anything, you do get a decent trade without using any resources, and you do earn the battle through like that. Alright, so the Kha'Zix is thinking whether to move it down, or does he have the Tide Turner to actually move it back like how he did it in the previous turn. And given that he's currently at 4 points, even if he does conquer the other battlefield, he's going to just push to 5, which is not exactly a very strong point tempo. So he can actually just simply play it safe here and just push back the Kha'Zix and start developing probably another Hui in base, and then fight for another turn. Because the Draven player will only go to 4 point after he holds, so it's not in any threat as well. Of course, we do have to respect that hidden card as well, so he has to consider quite a number of things. So to be honest, let's look at the potential hidden cards that the Draven player could play. I think the first card is definitely Evelyn, which is basically a charm. But before we go there, we do see the Realm Bloom student just diving in straight away, like I mentioned just now, which is one of the better units to engage with. And it's going to actually use some of the runes here. He has, I believe, 9 runes. Going to see Diana using his legend ability, reducing or rather gaining 1 energy for the showdown. And I think he's going to count again. No, he's actually going to pay for it. Total 3 runes, alright, which I believe is a Moon 4. Yep, the Moon 4 again, and it's going to reduce 2 or rather 4 might into the battlefield. So currently we're looking at 3 might to the 5, 4, 9, 5 might. Okay, 5 to 3, which is very interesting. And we shall see whether he does have any more spells in hand. We do see a Rebuke as well as Ride the Wind, which could actually be pushing the Kha'Zix into the battlefield as well. Now we shall see what is he intending to do with the hidden, because I think the Diana player here is actually baiting out cards, right? Because if it's a switcher rule, you don't really want to go too tall, and if it's an Evelyn, like I mentioned, it's not going to do too much as well. So we shall see how he intends to react to this. And it's very important because if you do take the trade here, it's going to be quite unfortunate. The Moon 4 does go through, so there's no counter spell in your hand, there's no Abandon, there's no Hard Bargain. I mean, we have only 1 rune standing anyway, so it can't really cast them all. So now the idea is whether he just let go one of the units, because currently it's 5 to 3, and we're going to see actually Ride the Wind coming down as well. Alright, and we shall see whether there's any reaction from the Draven. I believe there's none, given there's only 1 rune standing. But with the Kha'Zix coming in, we're going to see 8 might to 5 might now. So this battlefield can be conquered, unless we do see a very good hidden card right here. Alright, so hidden cards can also be switcher rule, which is not going to do too much if you ask me, given that the might the might here is not a lot of difference. So this is actually pretty well played by the Diana player. Not going to do too tall. And he's going to just be trading off one of the cards anyway, right? So will the Ride the Wind go through? Alright, he's going to push the Kha'Zix into the battlefield. But of course, Kha'Zix don't gain the extra 2 might there. However, it's just really pushing the entire might to 8 if this goes through. So it's just calculating right here to see whether is there any potential setback if he does play the hidden card. A lot of thinking, especially for Riftbound, a game like this, there's so much to consider. And one wrong move, right, is going to end the game. So we're going to see him actually pushing the Kha'Zix. So we're going to see 8 might in total for the Wasteland Field. Forbidden Waste, sorry. And we're going to see finally what's the hidden card. Just going to be a tight turner, right? So it's going to push into 7 might. So we're going to see him start trading off. I believe he's going to trade off the Kha'Zix. But the rest of the battlefield does die. So that's pretty unfortunate. We do gain 1 point for the Diana player. And he still has 6 runes standing. And there's no more unit for the Draven player. So this is actually pretty nasty, right? And now he can actually push up the Vex into the battlefield. It's going to stun any potential unit and then develop their Diana for future turns. So this is actually pretty well played by the Diana player. And the Draven player has to catch up. Because even if he develops unit now, it's actually moving to 7 points already for the Diana player. So Diana player can just simply go for the whole game. And then the Draven somehow has to fight 2 units or rather fight 2 battlefields. But of course, with the access to purple, you do have Ride the Wind, right? Ride the Wind has such a huge potential, allowing you to conquer 2 battlefields at once. But looks like he's going, but because of the Vex on the battlefield, he can really only just develop units at the base. There's not going to be any reaction that can be done unless he does go for the Falling Star. But Falling Star on the Vex is not too bright of an idea. You're going to see him develop the Jin in base, and with just 2 runes standing, I don't think he's actually going to have much, right? It looks like he does pass the turn, and we're going to move into 7 points thanks to the double hole. So with the Jin just developed, actually, to be honest, I think the Diana can just go for simple Moonfall, pull in the Jin, even though you have to pay the deflect cost. But if you do kill off that Jin successfully, there's no coming back, right? So you're gonna see him actually consider to move the Realm Bloom Student back to base, because at the Forbidden Waste, it's actually pretty unfortunate. And just gonna pass the turn, and that's like 10 runes standing, or rather 9 runes. And now, of course, the Draven player has to fight the Vex at the battlefield. This is obviously a huge bait, right? Because there's no need for the Diana player to actually really do anything. He's already winning by points. And even if they commit resources to kill off this Vex, right, he still had the Riven Bloom Student as well as the Diana ready to conquer. And he can just push it to the other battlefield to draw additional cards if he wants to. So this is actually very scary for the Draven player. He has to somehow kill the Vex without interacting with that 10 runes. And then of course deal with the Diana as well as the Riven Bloom Student in the backline. Of course, a card like Falling Star would be the perfect answer here. But it's pretty scary because there's also access to Counter Spell from the Diana player. We do see cards like Counter Spell, Hard Bargain, things like that. They'll definitely play them, especially in the sideboard. And this is already game 3, right? So we do see the Jin moving up to the Vex, just gonna gain 1 energy and 1 rainbow, 4 to 4. Now, you're going to cast the Rebuke immediately. Like I mentioned, he's more than okay to actually pay the deflect cost. So he does have 1 floating. And if the Jin just get bounced here, it is simply just game over, right? Because he can only play it back in base, and then the Vex will just stun it. And this is it. This is game. Just 1 simple Rebuke, and this is over. So congratulations to the worst player ever. For winning this and definitely showcasing why Diana is actually one of the meta decks in the season right now. So stay tuned for more matches, and I'll be going through more games that's going to be available in this championship as well. Thank you.